All right. Здравствуйте, добрый вечер, as they would say it in this country. So it's Tuesday, November the 16th, a day and a half after the closing of the polls. Weekend has the results into a very dubious paper. And as we were predicting when we were in downtown Sofia, the only thing that we got wrong is that GERB did not come out first, contrary to the expectation even of the people who voted against GERB. Somehow they ended up being second, but other than that, it's still a hunk parliament.
Yes, so they not only took our GERBs, but ITN went into a nosedive since the previous election.
Yes, according to various analysts, Ima Takov Narod, there is such a people, ITN, were deemed guilty of the collapse of for the formation of a new government by the electorate. That's what the analysts say. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. There's definitely a segment of the electorate that swung from ITN towards PP. So the first political party came in the polls, PP, Buzludzha Monument. We continue the change. It sounds very work, study, kind of work, like it says there. It's definitely a global homo leftist kind of party, which is why we chose to tape this segment at this glorious UFO built by the previous global homo leftist regime in this country. Although I'll have to admit, Todor Zhivkov was likely, Todor Zhivkov being Bulgaria's Ceausescu, Todor Zhivkov was probably less Stakhanovistic than these new people in politics. So there's that. So as you can see on the screen, Buzludzha Monument, PP, 67 seats. We continue the change. The political party was formed by two, well, they call themselves Harvard-educated entrepreneurs. I think a better option, or a better say, would be Harvard-educated bureaucrats. Is there an equivalent in English for futengejicht? I mean, basically people who cannot live without telling other people what to do and what to think, roughly speaking. So,
yeah.
So there's that. Most analysts, most international analysts, pretended that they were shocked. Now, admittedly, it is a small surprise that they came out first. They exceeded GERB in the polls, but it's not really a surprise that they got a decent score. In fact, we were joking with the electorate itself. PP was polling at 5 or 6% before the election, and we were like, that's a bit too low. They're probably going to get more. Now, admittedly, they got a lot more. So, the pollsters were like really wrong. Wronger than in the Hillary versus Trump situation. But then again, small countries, the pollsters are routinely wrong, even when they do their things right. So, of course, GERB, they took our GERBs. GERB would be the second party, Boyko Borisov's party, 59 seats, 4 seats less than the previous election. Again, previous election just 4 months ago.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that even though there is a recurrent theme of, fuck GERB, essentially, somehow they haven't recorded a serious loss. I mean, losing just 4 seats after, new anti-corruption investigations, more of the background of Boyko Borisov's wealth and his friends' corruption and whatnot, and only 4 seats lost.
Yeah, and entanglements with EPP.
And entanglements with EPP. I mean, there is still to be revealed, as of when we're recording. The press still pretends that they don't know. For instance, the amount of commission that Mr. Borisov has charged via Ursula von der Leyen for the vaccination program. But, all in due time. It will be revealed in due time. We're still supposed to pretend that we don't know about that. Alrighty. Then a huge surprise, in fact, probably even bigger than PP's score, would be Движение за права и свободы, the DPS, the Turkish party. Almost 13%. All of the polls, opinion polls before pre-election polling, gave them between 9 and 10.7. Nobody predicted 13, so it's quite a surprise. So as a result, 4 seats gained by the Turkish party. That's it's quite impressive. It is 33 seats. Usually the Turkish party is the 4th or the 5th, and usually 20-something seats. 33, the 3rd largest party in the parliament. If there will not be another snap election soon, and somehow they manage to form a coalition, we'll discuss about that in a minute. DPS will have a serious contribution, much more serious than the president's party. The president's party, Bulgarska Socialistichna Partia, the Bulgarian Socialist Party, only the 4th. Another 9 seats lost, only 27 seats compared to the previous election, again 4 months ago.
Yeah, but it was expected because while Rumen Radev, which is also from the Socialist Party, is all right, his party isn't all right.
That's true, that's true. And even though he tried towards the latter days of the campaign to also shill for BSP, expectedly so, he failed, or his party failed, or technically speaking it's not his party, just like in Romania, same thing here. The president is allegedly apolitical and is allegedly outside of the political game. Of course that's not the case, but it is what it is. Then only the 5th political party, ITN, Ima Takov Narod, there is such a people, founded by Slavi Trifonov. Friendly reminder, this so PP, the winner is founded 3 or 4 weeks ago, and the 5th political party, ITN, is founded no more than 5 months ago.
Yeah. These are some wild changes from the new people in politics in Bulgaria.
Yes,
but
but
in such
again,
a short time.
ITN came out first in July. If you remember, we commented about that in the World SOFA report. Now only 5th and lost 40 seats compared to. So they had 65 seats in the still current legislative, because the new parliament hasn't been seated yet. Now only 25, so a collapse in the polling. Most of the votes indeed went to PP, but some of them did go to the other 2 parties, the 6th and the 7th party. The 6th party being Democratic Bulgaria, DB, founded by Hristo Ivanov. Again, one of the new people who got penalized at the polls for failing to form a government in the summer. Minus 18 seats. So only 16 now. They had 34, if I recall correctly, in the previous election in July. So got penalized. But then the 7th party, everyone was expecting the 7th party to be those guys rise up, down with the mafia.
Down the mafia, or now they rebranded themselves as Stand Up Bulgaria.
Stand Up Bulgaria, yes, that's true.
We are coming.
Someone finally told them that their previous name is cringe. So they decided to be less cringe, and as a result they are out of the parliament.
Yeah, out of the parliament they managed to get 2.8%.
2.8, quite impressive. I was expecting 0 point something, nothing point something.
No, 0 point something is what the
Russians.
is what the pro-Russian party, whose president is currently charged with espionage in favor of Russia.
Yes, the founder of it's called the Russophiles for the Revival of the Fatherland,
or Ataka.
or Attack, I think. Yes, that political party got nothing point something, 0.9.
0.9.
Yeah, and the founder is currently being prosecuted for espionage, high treason, and things like that. There is a very strong suspicion, we're not supposed to say certainty yet, of him having worked with an institution called Federalny Sluzhby Bezopasnost, previously known as Komitet Gasudarstv Bezopasnost, or KGB. So there's that. Now, I don't know whether the guy is indeed KGB or not. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But when you run a party called the Russophiles for the Revival of the Fatherland in a country that is not Russia, there is a strong suspicion that maybe
maybe there are some rubles which are clinging around.
Yes. Maybe there are a few piles of rubles stacked somewhere inside the headquarters of the party. But the 7th party did not come out the stand up down with the mafia guys, Skulac Mafia, but allegedly far-right party called Varajdanye, or the Revival, which is now back into the parliament. It used to be before. In July, they got lower than 4%, 4% being the threshold. Now they're again above the threshold, 13 seats. It's a political party that is split from a much more known far-right party that did not make it into the new legislative, called VMRO.
VMRO has some pretty spicy policies,
Yes.
especially regarding the
Unsocialized gypsy groups. I mean, that's a direct quote from their platform. VMRO says in their platform that if they manage to get into power, they'll be looking to implement solutions to the unsocialized gypsy groups problem.
things like one-child policy for the gypsies, restrictive access to welfare.
And also tearing apart gypsy ghettos. I mean, that's what they say in their platform. Now, admittedly, we've looked for those gypsy ghettos and we were unable to find a full ghetto. Yeah, sure, there are some areas where there are more gypsies than usually, but nothing resembling a ghetto. So, maybe there are somewhere and we were just unable to find them, although we've really explored this country.
The only place that can be described as a ghetto, there are some blocks of flats, but only in Russia. I haven't been to the rest of the country, where
you're right. Towards the western part of the western exit of Russia. Yeah, sure. We didn't go there.
Exactly, no. And how you can tell that those are the gypsy flats? Not in Romania we used to make a joke about them back in the late 90s and early 2000s that the gypsies in Bulgaria are so poor is that they take out the steel reinforcing from the blocks of flats and they sell them.
But I mean, if that is the case with the other ghettos other than that one, and I do remember the one you mentioned, I've seen it in 2014 as my previous visit here in Bulgaria. But if that is the case, they're doing a fine job themselves at tearing them apart. I mean, there is no need for a political party so there's that. But in any event, those guys, VMRO, who their logo and their paraphernalia, whatever, it resembles quite a lot. It resembles Pravy Sektor in Ukraine, except that they're not as neo-fascist as Pravy Sektor, but pretty hardcore stuff. Varajdanye, the seventh party that got into the legislative, split from that one a few years back because this particular faction, Revival or Varajdanye, they didn't like the founder of VMRO and they objected to the founder being re-elected as a chairman of the party, so they split and they got their own far-right faction with blackjack and hookers.
They split on managerial grounds, not on ideological grounds.
That's true. But hey, it turned out to be a good move. VMRO is very low, like 1 point something, so a bit more than the Russophiles. But outside of the legislative, whereas Varajdanye got back into the legislative. So, but in the end, you can't really argue against the move. So in any event, 240 seats, so 121 needed for a majority. Now, any combination is possible. Don't let any analyst tell you that it's not. No, any combination is possible. I've seen that Reuters have somehow, they either forgot to mention it out of various agendas, or they simply didn't know. But just in the evening of the election, the chairman, the de facto chairman of GERB, essentially outright said, you know what, we're going to try to form a government with BSP and whoever else is willing. So at least we're going to try. Maybe we'll fail, but we're going to try. Of course, most analysts say that that's not possible, yada, yada, yada. Maybe it isn't possible, sure. But what I'm trying to say is that both the electorate and large portions of the political class, except PP, are kind of sick and tired of this shit. They're like, you know what, maybe even if it is an incompetent government, let's have a government. That's why GERBs slogan for the election was Posilni od Hausa, We're going to force everyone outside of the chaos, essentially, which turned out to be a highly popular slogan. I mean, they still came out second. They took our GERBs, but well, it is what it is. So don't discard any combination. Now, on a more serious or more realistic grounds, Rumen Radev, who by the way did not manage to get re-elected outright, only 49.4%.
4.45%, yeah.
Something to that effect. So there's going to be a second round where probably he'll get 80% or whatever. It's not but the president, whomever that person may be after the second round, which will be on November 21st, if I recall correctly, will have to appoint, will have to issue a mandate to form a government in the order of the size of the parliamentary groups. Obviously, PP will get the first shot at forming a government. Now, the problem is that they expected that those guys rise up down with the mafia. They will also get into the legislative, so they would have 4 new people parties into the legislative. If that had happened, then they probably would have had an outright majority to form a coalition with new political parties, fresh blood into politics. Now, since that hasn't happened, PP has a difficult mission. So, we're looking at something like they'll probably get the socialists. So that would be 94 seats. So there you go. Yeah, and with the Turks, Движение за право и свободы, that would be 127. Just enough for a majority. Now it depends. DPS, it's kind of like RMDS in Romania. They're usually attached to the old political class. They're not big fans of these new people, for obvious reasons. These new people have all sorts of strange ideas, other than the classical ideas, namely that we get into politics in order to get rich and our families to get rich, and things of that nature. Whereas these new people have all sorts of strange ideas of let's implement progressive taxes, let's
European integration.
European integration-ish sort of, yeah. So now admittedly, one difference, I guess, and this is probably the only country in Europe where things are like that. Not even in Romania we're pretty Europhilic, but here they're more Europhilic than us. Even the so-called Eurosceptic factions, they're soft Eurosceptics. I mean, the Alliance for the Unification of Romanians is far right in comparison to the far right from here. When it comes to the EU politics, that's what I mean. There is nobody here that campaigns for limiting the scope of the European Union or limiting the influence of the European Union in the country. So everyone is full pro Evrosayuz.
Yeah, and the reason why I think it's so, it's probably because the latest major shock that came from the European Union side is exactly this one with Green New Deal, and when what's at stake is closing down what is it,
the Maritza complex, yes,
the largest complex,
largest energetic complex in Southeastern Europe.
In Southeastern Europe.
This would be the complex. You're looking at it right now. We went there to get a statement. We finally did get a statement via phone, but from the gate of the institution. They were pretty optimistic. Now, admittedly, background information, 2 months ago in September, they brought a couple of thousand people, miners mostly, into Sofia to march through the capital city and demand to negotiate with the political class. And much to everyone's surprise, they were welcomed at negotiation. And they had the entire political class to pledge that they will negotiate with the European Commission, starting from the demands of the miners themselves. Now, the Director General that I spoke with over the phone, he seemed pretty optimistic about the whole thing. I'm not sure whether he has a point in being optimistic. I mean, he did not seem to realize just how ideologically committed Европейский Союз is when it comes to destroying, our way of life in Eastern Europe. So, maybe he's right. I hope he's right, but I don't think so. So there's that. Now, I was looking at the various versions, 92 plus 16, yeah, damn it, that's still not enough. So in a coalition with PP, ITN and Democratic Bulgaria, that's still 5 seats short of an outright majority. So probably it's going to have to be a coalition with the socialists and maybe Democratic Bulgaria, something like that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Maybe some of maybe it's the voters that told us in the interviews that probably we're going to vote for a fourth time. Maybe they will turn out to be having a point.
It's a legitimate possibility. Not this year because there's no more time.
There's no more time, yeah. But maybe during the spring, in April, once again they're going to go to the polls. It's entirely possible. Basically, the rough conclusion is that, the turnout at the polls was absolutely atrocious, even lower than in the summer. And in the summer, they said, well, everyone is on vacation, there are many people left abroad and whatnot.
And they got 140% polls attendance rate in Burgas because everybody here was on vacation.
But then, national turnout ended up being like 40 something. And it was excused as, well, it is a bit too low because a lot of people are on vacation abroad and maybe they had difficulties in voting, yada, yada, yada. Okay, now everyone was in the country, or even the diaspora was at work and was able to schedule their trip to the Bulgarian embassy or consulate or whatever in order to vote. And even so, turnout was lower. And that's including voting for the presidency. Speaking of which, the turnout at the presidency was even lower than for the parliament.
For the parliamentary election, the attendance rate was 30.9%. But for the presidential election, it was 28.9.
28.9, yes. Although, admittedly, that's a preliminary figure. Believe it or not, even though it's Tuesday, we still don't know the final figure because, counting
takes a few days.
Counting is difficult, but we're trying to move as fast as possible. We cannot just wait for the entirety of the Bulgarian bureaucracy.
And aside from that, counting here is especially complicated because this time they tried a hybrid system where you could also vote on paper but also electronically with some machines which are not Dominion machines.
Oh no, not Dominion machines.
Not Dominion machines, they were Smartmatic machines, but then it was completely strange because some places had it, some places didn't, and in some places where they had it, they had to instruct babushkas how to vote on the machine.
I'll see if I can find those on YouTube, and maybe I won't get a copyright strike for them, and maybe introduce some of the footage that I believe it was Novinite TV, Televizia that broadcasted them, or maybe BGN or one of these broadcasted reports from inside the polling station on how various teenagers essentially were instructing the babushkas on how to vote. I'm sure that ended up being a very fair vote. Although, to be fair, I wouldn't measure my forces with the Bulgarian babushka. Probably she had a very good idea on who she would vote for. It was just that, well, what is this electronic crap? Why can't we just use, a pen like normal people do? So yeah, I guess the final conclusion would be that this is one of the most apathetic societies that I have visited over the last decade. Just the total, not the total number, the total proportion of the population interested in politics is just very, very low, which it's not only philosophically dangerous, of course, for the integrity of a democracy. This is terrible, this is haram. But, I'm not really interested in that. What's a lot more dangerous is that when you have 70, 80% of the population that just outright refuses to engage with politics even during election time, then that means whoever gets into that parliament can do pretty much whatever the fuck they want. There's no one to stop them.
Yeah, that doesn't bode well when you have the special interest groups of the civilian society suddenly dictating law in your country.
Special interest groups from the society dressed in civilian clothes. Because, way too many of them glow in the dark. I mean, come on, let's face it. Especially what's his name? Yasin Vasilyev, the second founder of the We Continue the Change party. I mean, that guy glows in the dark heavily. I'm sorry, but he does. And I've seen that some news agencies, for instance, Rador and Agence France Presse and also TASS, the Russian state agency, they were saying that the Bulgarian electorate was courageous to try once again another new party formed this morning, essentially, after 2 consecutive failures with new parties, namely in April and July 2021. I don't know, is it courageous or insanity?
That remains to be seen.
It remains to be seen. In favor of the courageous position, you would say yes, but these guys, they've been educated at Harvard, they've been ministers before in various caretaker cabinets, interim cabinets, and as a result, at least some of their potential competence was observable, albeit for a few months or a few weeks. So that would be an argument in favor of the electorate was courageous. On the other hand, there is the argument that the electorate was insane. Come on, these guys come from Harvard. Name me one good thing done by a Harvard man in politics, anywhere you want on the planet. Please, I'll wait. Give me an example.
Yeah, I want to take here one word from actor Jude Law, from the young Poe, that said something interesting about the people educated at Harvard. It may sound impressive for Europeans, but for Americans it's the epitome of mediocrity.
It is the epitome of mediocrity, but in addition to that, we'll just have to look at the record of history. John Maynard Keynes was a Harvard man. Just saying. And almost all of the terrible economic decisions made between the 1950s and 1980s in the US were made by Harvard men. More recently, right, the new president of Moldova, she's educated at Harvard, and as a result, Moldova pays for gas the most in Europe.
$700 per cubic meter.
Per cubic meter, yeah, that would be about 2.7 times more than the European average. I mean, even Ukraine pays less for gas, and Ukraine is at open war with Russia. I'm just saying, right? So, these Harvard men are, I don't know. One of the most terrible cabinets that Romania ever had was led by Harvard-educated men. The one in 2016, right? So I don't know. I mean, Harvard men in Eastern Europe, they just don't bode well. Of course, I wish PP good luck. I hope they manage to prove me wrong. I'm always glad when I'm proven wrong on these kinds of predictions, but I just don't think I will. So yeah, that would be pretty much it. That's what's been going on. Maybe a few things about this UFO. It's in the middle of fucking nowhere, very close to Veliko Trnovo, the town. We're probably not going to get to Veliko Trnovo during the daytime, so well, there's that. Maybe we'll get some footage from the streets of Veliko Trnovo. It depends. That's why it wasn't included in the official itinerary. But this monument is basically abandoned. It even says there, right? Влизание то забранено, entry prohibited. It's most Bulgarians would prefer this thing ceases to exist. They're not proud of it, perfectly understandable. But they're not proud of it, but they vote for new wave of left-wing global homos. So it is what it is. Maybe I'll put some footage from the road all the way to this monument. It's a very complicated maze to get here, but it's fun. I mean, you get to look at the fog from upwards, which is always nice. Great natural landscapes in this country for sure. Too bad that the political life is lifeless. I mean, I guess that would be the final word, lifeless. Too many idealists, almost nobody that really knows what they're doing. And I thought the politics of Zimbabwe is terrible, but at least the politics of Zimbabwe involves the practical exercise of power. But here, You only get localist idealists and people who really don't know what they're doing. And also, of course, people like those guys with the gypsy problem. I mean, come on. As fun as that may be, I also understand why the Bulgarian electorate isn't really willing to give those people too high of a mandate. I guess, point of information, on a per capita basis, Bulgaria has the largest population of gypsies, about 6.8 or 7.8, something like that. Percent of the population is officially of Roma ethnicity, gypsies. The largest number being in Spain, but Spain is a large country, so 2 million gypsies don't make much of a difference in Spain. So there's that. All right. Is there anything that we have forgotten to say?
No, that's about it.
No, about it. All right. Then thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed our trip into Bulgaria. Of course, I'll come back with a deeper analysis as new decisions are being made. We've gathered about 200 gigabytes of footage, so there's going to be enough material to create at least one more or maybe two more videos from and about Bulgarian politics. And yeah, I'll see you all soon. Cheers.